had somewhat of a unique journey for my ACP credentials. I've had several great opportunities. I've had a lot of luck. I've had some great unofficial mentors and others providing me guidance. Plus, I had the unique opportunity to actually change positions through promotions to gain the experience in all the laboratory areas that I needed to qualify for the microbiology technologist exam. So a little bit more about that is I actually began my career at a state public health laboratory. So therefore I had minimal traditional clinical hospital laboratory type testing experience and much more of a reference laboratory testing background with only a little bit of clinical lab testing based on my lab's provided testing services at the time. So I had co-workers that previously already had ACP certifications. I'd always recognized the credentials and the values that they brought to those individuals through their education and proven experiences. So although it was not a requirement in my laboratory at the time to be credentialed, I recognized and knew right away that being credentialed would open many more doors for me, provide a lot more job opportunities for me to work in clinical lab spaces. I was still pretty young in my career at the time and suspected that I might change jobs over the span of my career, and just knew early on it was something that I wanted to strive to achieve professionally and personally. It's as simple as I just initially learned about it through, I learned about the ACP certifications through word of mouth and from my coworkers and just being in this public health laboratory and clinical lab environment. So I learned more about it through visiting the ASCP websites on my own, but initially just by, seeing the coworkers that I was around, the easy, clear differences between chemists and microbiologists and more experienced scientists that had the certification. So you quickly pick up on it just through people's email signatures, I think is your first kind of recognition and learning more about what do these acronyms mean. So yeah, I learned about it from coworkers. For me, lots of intense studying. I really needed a lot of intense studying to gain that better understanding of the clinical lab level tests, which I think the exam primarily focuses on. So for me, coming from a reference laboratory background, there was a huge gap in my understanding of what I knew was going to be a major portion of the test. So I bought my own study guides online, specifically the ones that had the answers explained to help me understand the ones I got wrong even better. I obtained reference materials from colleagues. I made my own flashcards. I constantly carried flashcards with me. Fear is a good motivator, and I was a little bit intimidated by the exam, so I studied constantly for it. Because I just knew the exam was challenging. But then also, me just being a relatively new microbiologist at the time, I think it really just kind of went hand in hand because I was trying to just learn more about the tests that I was already performing, the organisms I was working with. So it just helped. It was very compatible to study at the same time of me being trained with the work I was doing. The obvious and biggest obstacle for me was that I didn't attend a medical laboratory science MLS or MLT program to get traditionally prepared for the exam and learning about all the clinical laboratory tests. So since I didn't go that traditional route, I needed to be very self-taught for what I needed to know for the exam. So it was also just, I think, a great coincidence that I was able to have the relevant and required experience to qualify for the exam by the luck of the experience I had by being able to change positions in my laboratory to work in a parasitology lab and a mycology lab and a bacteriology lab and a virology lab, where if I didn't have those opportunities, I probably would not have been able to qualify for the exam. So I think for me, biggest obstacle was getting the required experience to qualify for the exam, but then also being self-motivated enough to really press myself to study when it wasn't mandated of me to do that. So staying very motivated to be on top of it. I had to learn about a lot of tests that I wasn't currently performing or that only I rarely performed. So really relying on book knowledge and experience rather than hands-on experience was a big factor here. And everybody has different personal responsibilities in their life. I have been single for a long time, so I had more free time to study. But I think time is a factor for studying, and I was studying all the time, but I had a little bit of free time at the time. Unfortunately, to this day, I still don't think my friends and family have a good understanding of the type of work that I've done over the years. And I really don't blame them, because I think that someone really needs to have actual laboratory experience to really understand the nature of our work and what does it mean when we say the things that we do for our work. I think COVID helped, but I think in general, it's hard to visualize what people do in a laboratory space. So, however, I've had a lot of support from colleagues and coworkers over the years who've shared their guidance and knowledge with me, given me great resources to help me study for the exam, like other people's flashcards and study guides, both electronic and paper copies. So I think it's critical that I reached out and asked for help, and I was motivated enough to talk to coworkers and get some guidance to prepare myself for the exam. I think this is a great question for me specifically and my path. And I think my response probably will speak to me as an individual here in the path I went on. So at the time that I applied for the exam, I was a general public health microbiologist. And like I mentioned, I previously got to work in the different areas of a tuberculosis laboratory, a bacteriology laboratory, where I also got exposed to some parasitology and mycology, but then also got to work in a virology laboratory. And then later I moved on to a bioemergency response or a biothreat response laboratory that did laboratory response network or LRN type work. So later in my career, when I was a biosafety officer and a laboratory response network or LRN biothreat training coordinator, my job required me to go out and educate Sentinel clinical laboratorians how to safely and presumptively identify potential select agents or other emerging pathogens that they may encounter in their laboratory or work. So I absolutely needed to have a very good understanding of the clinical level tests in order to effectively communicate with and train hospital staff all across my state, and whenever I got to participate in some national efforts. So therefore, it was truly imperative that I had a very good and deep understanding of the essential clinical lab level tests to be able to speak appropriately about the details of those tests and those procedures as they related to ruling out higher risk pathogens, such as basic tests like gram stains, oxidase, catalase, indole urease, and of course as well just the culture growth interpretations. So being certified really provided me with that sense of personal and professional accomplishment, but day to day it also really indirectly helped provide me with that deeper understanding of the microbiological tests, processes and procedures and organisms, and really gave me the helpful and required motivation to stay current with my knowledge through certification maintenance processes to just really stay in tune with trends and other technology. I think what's important for a lot of people to understand too is most laboratorians don't always get to interact with the public. We tend to stay behind the scenes, so not everybody really gets to see what we do, and we don't always get the direct interactions like other healthcare professionals. But I think one way that's very clear to demonstrate the professionalism, or I think being credentialed is one very clear way to demonstrate professionalism in our field, by showing other individuals that we've met some rigorous standards and obtained a desired level of knowledge to pass a certification exam. So I think this helps illustrate individuals' experience to others, whether that's other laboratorians, patients, or others we cross paths with professionally and personally. And I believe that there's a lot of power in standardization, and the ASCP certification exam really helps provide and communicate that level of standardization and a standardized excellence. So with the absence of a national laboratory licensure system like there is for nursing, I think the ASCP certification really helps provide some of this professionalism assurance and credibility within our laboratory field. I think the ASCP credentials has helped bring more confidence to me on a day-to-day aspect with my work. And I hope overall the years where I really needed to represent my laboratory and work and train with clinical laboratorians across my state, it helped bring some credibility and assurance that I was an experienced and knowledgeable microbiologist and able to effectively communicate with other laboratorians and healthcare professionals. So, and for me, in addition to the microbiology technologist certification I obtained, I also have the QLS, or the Quality and Laboratory Safety qualification from ASCP, because a lot of my previous work and roles revolved around lab safety in addition to general and specialized microbiology. So my involvement with ASCP and my certification and qualification, I think, really helped me feel connected, very connected to the clinical microbiology community, and gives me a lot of confidence in my laboratory related responsibilities and communications. The short and simple here is talk to your coworkers and colleagues, join professional organization listservs and newsletters to be a little bit more self-educated when you can. I think the world of clinical microbiologists is relatively small, and an even smaller world in the world for public health microbiologists. But I think all of us want to help each other grow individually and as a whole for our entire laboratory profession. So I definitely want to encourage everybody to reach out and ask for help and advice, ask lots of questions, be self-motivated, rely on your peers and colleagues within your community who really do want to help you and others like you succeed. From my experiences, I think in general, laboratorians like sharing information with others. So I think everybody should really try to take advantage of that and learn from your surroundings and your coworkers and colleagues. I think that there's a wealth of information and experience to be shared, and plenty of people who want to officially and unofficially teach and mentor those that are newer in their careers or just looking to further expand and grow their current careers.